The other side of the coin, purely from the coffee industry, other than the challenges I've already said about climate change, it's been 10 years of innovation and excitement. Every year, something new would get introduced. There'd be a new bit of kit to play with. People would introduce a new idea, like the idea that the mineral composition of your water is really important. That was something I didn't know about when I first started, but then that started getting drip fed and everyone messes around with that. And on a farm level, there's so much going on with innovative processing techniques and fermentation techniques going on with coffee now. So counteracted with the challenges that are being faced. It's been really, really exciting.
I'm Kevin Rivers, and my friend Carlos Miranda and I are two American expats who spend their days either eating or waiting to eat in our adopted home of Edinburgh. We are on a 10-episode journey to learn the stories behind some of the bars, restaurants, and coffee shops that make up this city's world-class food scene. This is Eating and Waiting to Eat. This week, we're talking to somebody who has played a pivotal role in making Edinburgh Carlos's and my adoptive home. We are speaking with Matt from Fortitude Coffee. Fortitude Coffee is a special place for both Carlos and I for multiple reasons. Fortitude was my go-to coffee shop in the city before I even moved to town.
Yeah, Fortitude also was a place that I used to go to before I moved to Edinburgh. And so it's interesting because it's such a formative place for our friendship, but it was also a place that became my first spot in town. We used to come visit some of our closest friends named Joni and Andy. The very first time we ever came to visit them, I do what I always do when I go to a new place and hit the world's best coffee app. And it said, Fortitude Coffee, 0.2 kilometers away. And so for years, every time that I visited Edinburgh, we would stay with them and I would just walk around the corner to go to Fortitude. And so it became this place that I just associated with the city. And when we eventually moved here, it was my go-to coffee shop. I knew that that's where I would be going.
Once you moved to town, you weren't right around the corner from it. It's a little bit of a hike from your house.
Yeah, it's like 18 minutes door to door. So 36 minutes if you're walking round trip. But I had a dog named Kira that I adored. She passed away a little bit over a year ago. And Kira was a French bulldog. And Frenchies are great city dogs because they don't need a ton of exercise. So Fortitude was the perfect distance to walk. By the time she got to Fortitude, she was exhausted. I would have my coffee, give her a tiny bit at the end as a reward. She loved coffee.
I've never met a dog that loved coffee before, but Kira loved
coffee.
it.
Loved coffee. And then we walked back. And that was her walk for the day.
The coffee gave her the energy to make the
coffee
trip
energy, exactly. Gave her the fortitude to get back. Oof.
Wow.
I know. Good thing I'm sitting down, right? That took a lot of RAM. So it was like, to me, like you, it was a coffee shop that I didn't even live in town, but it was my spot.
Yeah. Once I moved to town, it was really kind of where yours and my friendship cemented. I'd go to Fortitude every morning and you would be there, and pretty much 3 or 4 out of 5 days in the week, we would wind up having coffee together because we were both at Fortitude at the same time. And from there, we started going and having other meals around town.
It really was. A lot of times I would go and I'd be like, oh, I wonder if Kevin's going to be there because he's my coffee buddy. And then when you weren't, all I had to do was wait an extra 5 minutes and Kevin would walk in through the door, and then it would extend my Fortitude stay by half an hour. Really, like Fortitude is where we became friends. It is where so many of our schemes and shenanigans, including this very podcast, all of it came from Fortitude.
Yeah, it really is instrumental.
Totally. 100%. Looking at all of these episodes, these are places that we love dear, and we want our love for these restaurants to come through. But there's something special about Fortitude.
Yeah, there really is. So let's get into the vital stats.
So Fortitude started in 2014. And as we're talking, there are 2 spots, Abbey Mount and our go-to, where most of you could find us, is Hamilton Place in Stockbridge. What's the vibe in there, Kev?
So the vibe in there is really open and inviting. It's the type of place where you can go in for a quick coffee or you could sit there for hours. It's got this really, especially the Hamilton Place location, has this modern Scandi feel that's set in this really classic Edinburgh environment, and it's a very nice contrast.
I agree with you about the calming presence. I love being in there. And again, sometimes I'm in there for 2 minutes. Sometimes I'm in there for 32 minutes.
So normally at this point, I'd ask you what we order at the establishment we're talking to this week. But we're going to do things a little bit different this week.
Yeah, to celebrate how special Fortitude is to us and to this podcast, our Eating and Waiting to Eat logo has 2 Fortitude-related aspects to it. The table in our logo that you're looking at right now is a table from Fortitude. And the barcode on our receipt logo is a real barcode, and it tells our Fortitude order, the thing that you and I order every single day. So given that this is our 10th episode of the show.
End of the first season.
And Fortitude is such a special place, we thought that the first listener to figure out what our coffee order is from the barcode and the receipt, we will treat them and a friend to 2 coffees, 2 pastries at Fortitude.
As the lawyer between us, I must also specify that you cannot be an employee at Fortitude or related to either Carlos or I.
Yeah, because then you'd know.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, as noted, we can't be more excited to have Matt on. When we started this podcast, I knew that I wanted Fortitude. So shall we bring Matt on?
Yeah, I think we should.
How are you, Matt?
Very good, thank you. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for being on our program. We're going to be geeking out a little bit more than usual on this particular episode because both Kevin and I have a deep love for Fortitude. We want to hear your origin story, but fun fact, we started being friends because we met at Fortitude.
Oh, wow.
So all of this, even us sitting here together, started because I was a regular at Fortitude. And then Kevin and I really met at Fortitude. And he had just, we hadn't even moved here.
I hadn't moved here, but I was as much of a regular as one can be without living.
While living in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles.
In San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah. But yeah, before we moved here, we would come all the time. And so I was pretty much a regular at Stockbridge Fortitude. Surprised we never ran into each other before that day, honestly.
And so he was just sitting there, and I was with my wife, and we just started being friendly and started chatting, and then we chatted for like 20 minutes, and then he was like, is it weird if I give you my number so we can hang out when I move here next month? And I was like, no, and then totally forgot about it. And then like a month later, I get a message saying, hey, Carlos, I'm back in town. Want to meet up? And I was like, who the fuck is this? I then sent it to my wife, and I was like, who? And she was like, remember that nice guy we met at Fortitude? And I was like, oh, him.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
and then we went out to lunch. And then from then, because we like connected, we then started seeing each other every morning. I think really, he really wanted to be my friend. So he would just like knew what time I was going. And so he was just always there.
Yeah.
Right.
I'd say it was because of the coffee.
Okay.
You know.
All right. Let me believe what I want to believe.
Yeah.
Fair
No, you live in your world.
Exactly. No, but it was, so this is a very special episode for us just because it's how we became friends. It's really why this podcast exists.
Yeah, that's really sweet.
And now that we've taken up half the episode with our backstory, let's hear your backstory.
Well, let's start off with a really softball question. What's your coffee order?
Espresso,
Okay.
I think, yeah. Well, actually, no. It depends if I'm sitting in or taking away. If I'm taking away and I'm driving, it'll be a flat white because trying to have something too liquidy in the car is a nightmare. Had many accidents. So flat white kind of sits a bit nicer, but if I'm sitting in, espresso every time.
Double, quad, like what's your...
Just whatever they're offering. Some places they'll just have an espresso. Some places like us, they'll have options, and I'll just say, whatever you want to serve me, what's good.
Very good. I think that's all of our orders.
When we first met, you were a macchiato guy.
Kevin 100% confirmed.
Yeah.
I was always a double macchiato.
Yeah.
And when I started hanging out with Kevin, he did 100% change my coffee order, that's a big thing to do to someone.
That's like next level sort of on the friendship scale there.
Sometimes you don't realize the impact people have had on your life.
It's very true. So, all right, where did you grow up?
So I was born down in England, in Essex, but I got out of there early. I think we moved up the Scottish borders when I was 6. So my dad, he worked on the oil rigs and he took a big job that needed him flying out from Aberdeen. So we needed to move up close to somewhere near Aberdeen. And we ended up in this little village called Coburn's Path, which is right on the A1, just down from Dunbar. Very quiet, very safe, right in the country, little spot. Nothing ever happened. So it was a really nice place to grow up. And then I moved up to Edinburgh when I was 19 for work. So at the time I was just working at Argos. When I left school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Wasn't that great academically. So like university was kind of off the table. I didn't know, probably would have not succeeded there anyway. So I just kind of went to work. But I got a job as a stockroom manager for Argos at their peak when the catalogue was in every household. And then that was kind of me for a few years whilst I was kind of trying to figure it all out. Very late developer. We've got way into my 20s, was just not knowing what to do.
And then how did you go from Argos to food and hospitality? Because Fortitude's been around for a minute now.
It has been, yeah, 11 years now.
11 years. Okay, so what was that gap like? What were you doing?
So the thing I was always doing on the side was music. I was in a band. I was a drummer for a while. To absolutely no level or success. It was just for fun. But at one point, we did think we were going to take over the world, as every band does. But we quickly realized that nobody really liked our songs, and they all liked Led Zeppelin songs better. So we just played covers in pubs and things. But it was so much fun. It was a great way to kind of spend your evenings when you're in your early 20s. But I thought, well, why don't I go and learn more about this? And what I really wanted to do was music production, engineering, recording, working in a studio. So whilst I was doing that, needed a little job on the side. I'd left Argos at this point, and I ended up working at John Lewis and got what I thought at the time was just lumped into the hospitality department for some kind of punishment for a crime I didn't know I'd committed. Because I'd never worked in hospitality at the time, but it had a reputation for being like, if you've ended up there, because you're not wearing the nice suit and you're not selling sofas or whatever. But whilst I was studying music production, working in this hospitality department, and I don't know, something just sort of clicked. Hospitality teams are quite unique as a very like band of brothers, particularly in that John Lewis at the time, we would have days on the weekend, like Saturdays, where we'd make like 20 grand in one day, just selling coffees and scones and fake carbonara from a packet. But it was heaving, absolutely heaving. And you had to all band together and work as a team. And it kind of like bonds you in a way that I think other jobs don't. And you'd get to the end of the day, you'd be clearing up. And even though you're all knackered and it's been such a day, everyone was looking at each other in the eye and just like, we did it. We got through that. And there's just a certain feeling that I really got into that and I really enjoyed that. And the other side is at the time, and it is quite a unique point in time for the John Lewis Hospitality Department, was that not only I was there, but there was a guy there called Carroll, who has since gone on to open Short Long Black and a place I think is called Patricia's in Glasgow. And Short Long Black is an excellent coffee spot if you're ever in Glasgow. But he was there before I joined, but he was very into coffee. And I was like, oh, what are you doing there? Like doing little bits of latte art and taking his time over things, and that piqued my interest a bit. And then I sort of started to take a little bit of interest in the mechanics of coffee. It wasn't great coffee at all, but the idea of using an espresso machine and a grinder and learning a little bit of latte art really sort of got my brain going. And then there was another guy that joined a little bit after me who is called John Gibson, and he is now, I believe, head of coffee for a company called Le Cabra, who are a huge Danish roastery, very, very famous in the specialty coffee world. So this little John Lewis hospitality department had 3 people who would eventually go on to have quite successful careers in coffee. So after I finished my course in music production, at the time it was very hard to find work. I didn't have the time to hustle because I needed to work. I had to work full time, and with a lot of creative industries, you have to basically just be able to give yourself away for ages, but just to make connections, just to be able to do the work, but not expect to get any payment for it. And I just couldn't do that. So I didn't really have the time to hustle, and it was just a little bit before the whole thing was digitized. Now, if you were trying to do that, you could set up a website, you can do a lot of the work digitally. People can send you files to get mixed and mastered, and you can just do it all at home, and then you can send back a finished product. That avenue wasn't quite there yet when I went out into the world. So I took on the job in this John Lewis hospitality department full time and just cracked on with that for a little bit, honing my hospitality skills, shall we say. And then Helen, my wife and co-owner of Fortitude, we weren't married at the time, but we were together. But she had started on behalf of a guy called Sir Mark Jones, the original Golden Hair bookshop. I'm sure you'll know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So here's some Edinburgh
it's
independent coffee business lore for you.
Exactly.
It's a deep dive here. So back in, it would have been around 2011, 2012, Helen was interning at a publisher's, and there's a guy called Sir Mark Jones who, I don't think he is anymore, but he was the director of the V&A, and he wanted to start a bookshop in Edinburgh. And he knew somebody who was working at this publisher's, and he was asking if there was anybody who would be good for running this little bookshop. And the owner, or the manager of the publishers anyway, put Helen's name forward, and she was like, sure, why not? Let's give it a go. And so she, along with Mark Jones, set up the original Golden Hare in the grass market, it was at the time. And she ran that for about a year and a half, 2 years. It was a funny one because I don't think it was the right location for it. And it was obviously just a brand new business. Everybody's trying to find their way. So it never fully took off down in the grass market. But the one thing that it did get was Helen some experience of running an independent shop and all the things that go on around that. So she was picking up all this experience and all this knowledge, and at the time, I was picking up all this hospitality knowledge and what I thought was good coffee knowledge. But it turns out when we did eventually first open, it was a very steep learning curve for me. But we put our heads together one day and just thought, why not? Why don't we just give it a go? We're not too far out from the big 2008 recession. So to us, it just felt like there wasn't a lot of opportunity. And I think if you have a look around a few of the other businesses that all started around the same time, it's similar people at a similar age and a similar point in their life. There was just this time where everyone was like, well, it feels like there's not really a lot out there, so why don't we just try and create some opportunities ourselves? And so we put a business plan together. We managed to get some money together. The banks were a lot more friendly back then. So we were very fortunate to be able to get all that together. And then we started Fortitude in 2014, early 2014 in March.
So is the division of labor between your wife and you that your wife handles the business side of things and you're more the
It was initially,
production?
for about the first 6 months, I just worked every single day on my own. It was also like new and a very slow burn, which was fine because it gave us a lot of time to make mistakes and learn on the job. I think if you went into the original Fortitude in the first week, you would have probably been like, what is this? Compared to what we know how to do now. So that was kind of it initially. But then thankfully things picked up. And for a few years we worked together on the bar, and then we were introducing staff into the mix as well. And in that time, we have started a family. So Helen's been at home a lot with the kids. And a couple of years ago now, Helen took over the bakery side of things. She's a very talented baker as well.
Oh, does she do all the, is it
does.
all her?
Everything except the pastries.
Okay, but all the
which
cakes?
we buy, but all the cakes.
The cakes are the best part.
Yeah, she's developed that whole style and that whole menu herself over the last couple of years. Because the more that we can do in-house, we try and do it. And so the opportunity came to do a bakery, I think 3 years ago. And the original girl we had running the bakery, she moved away, she moved out of town. And so we were left without a baker. And so just to make ends meet, Helen was like, well, I can go in and just make some cakes, it's fine. But then turns out that she actually had a real knack for it and a real desire to do it and to get better and to try and develop the menu that you see there now.
The pistachio lemon curd is it's so
classic.
good. It's like my kryptonite.
And you talked a little bit about the first shop and bar. Where was it and why'd you choose that place?
So it was on York Place. We chose that place because at the time it was just the right, it's a tiny little shop for us just starting out with not a very big budget, and just wanting us to run it. Having a small shop makes a lot of sense, but it was really well placed. It was right in the center of town. It was right above the Stand Comedy Club, just 2 seconds from the Portrait Gallery as well. So it's very ideally placed. Worked for our budget, and what proved over time was that it was very, very busy in the summer, and it had more than enough regulars working nearby. Because at the time, this is pre-COVID, St. Andrew's Square was just packed with offices. And I think the trams were finished about a year after we opened. So lots of people getting on the trams. And it was a very bustling little part of town. And just having a little espresso bar right in the middle of that worked really, really well.
And from there, the next step, if I'm not mistaken, is you started roasting your own beans. Talk to us about that, because that's fascinating, because it's a totally different business in many respects.
Yes. Yeah.
So what triggered that?
Again, our instinct is to always kind of want to do everything in-house, for better or worse. But at the time, some people might debate, but I think we were the first, when we first opened, we were what's called a multi-roaster, certainly in Edinburgh, not necessarily not saying in the UK or anything, but in Edinburgh. So multi-roaster cafe, they might have a house supplier, but they're getting a lot of guest roasters to sort of build the menu. And particularly, we were one of the first to start bringing in coffee from Europe. So back in the glory days when the UK was part of the EU, we could just call up someone in Germany and be like, hey, can we have some coffee? And they'd be like, sure. And it would arrive in 2 days. We started embracing that. So coffees from Germany, from Spain, from all over Scandinavia, the Netherlands. And it became quite a nice thing for us to be able to offer. But because at the time nobody was roasting, everybody needed to find interesting roasters to bring in as a USP. So quickly you were starting to see the same people popping up all over the place. And so we saw that as a good opportunity to start our own coffee brand here, like a roasting brand. And so I think that was in 2016, we started that project, which we kept quite low key. We got this unit down in Granton, which we still have. And we just did a very, very basic fit out because it was never going to be open to the public. So why spend a ton of money on it? Like, what's the point? And it was just going to be me in there. Invested in a really good roaster, which we still have running today. And then bought in some green coffee. And much like when we opened the first cafe, it was me realizing how little I actually knew.
So how did you learn to roast?
Just giving it a go. It's one of the advantages of roasting for your own cafe is that even if you do a really bad job of it, you can find a way to make it work. It gives you that opportunity to think, okay, this batch isn't the best, but if we just tweak it like this on the bar, it'll be okay. We'll get by. You're not sending it to a client who's expecting to have the best coffee because they've spent good money on it. It's like, we can just sort of mess around. I think the hardest part for me, roasting, the actual roasting of coffee, the using of the roaster is fairly straightforward. It's quite repetitive. And these days, a lot of roasters have a lot of automation technology built into them. But the hardest thing to learn is the tasting. It's understanding what's in that cup and how either that positive or negative trait translates to what's happened in the roaster and then being able to make those tweaks. And with coffee, what I've been finding anyway, especially over the last couple of years, where climate change seems to have accelerated and is having a lot of effect on coffee crops now, both in terms of volume, but also in terms of quality, is you can have a set profile that you used maybe a year ago, 2 years ago, that was producing outstanding coffee, and it doesn't work anymore. It's roast, cup it, tweak it, roast it, cup it, tweak it, and that it's that year after year after year.
So that's something that for as much coffee as I drink, I should really appreciate more. How difficult roasting is because you can't make adjustments during the process. You don't know what it's going to be like until it's finished and you're tasting it. And so it's a lot of rinse and repeat and guesswork in that way.
Yeah, to a certain extent. There are definitely some things that you can pick up on in the roast where you think, well, that's not worked. That's going to taste this certain way. But yeah, a lot of it is very fine detail. And you're looking for like really small margins of error. And we'll regularly spend like 2 or 3 hours going through our cupping table on a Monday morning, scoring every single batch that we've done, looking for patterns, looking for traits that are positive, that are negative, and trying to make adjustments in our roast that are going to either accentuate the good parts and hopefully fix the bad parts. Thrown into that as well, particularly in Scotland, you got like weather to deal with because in the summer you're roasting in 20-30 degree heat, and in the roastery it can get up to 40 degrees on a really hot day when the roaster's been on all day, and then in like 6 months it's like -10 when I go in, and you've essentially got frozen coffee to deal with. So like you're battling against all that as well, all with the aim of producing a consistent product that you guys won't notice. All of this stuff that's going on, all of these changes,
And are you still the main person doing all the roasting? Do you have staff doing roasting? What's the deal now?
I am now. We did have staff, but we had a little bit of a bad period a couple of years ago where we had to make some unfortunate changes. One of the downsides of essentially running a wholesale business is you're completely at the behest of your clients. And if they just decide, we're done with you now, we're going to go over here. And then you're just like, great, well, that's 2/3 of our income gone overnight. And if you're not immediately presented with recovery to that, then that's when you're like, okay, we've got to make changes, unfortunately. And I think this has ultimately been a good thing for us. We kind of decided to get out of the wholesale game about a year and a half ago, because there's enough trade with our cafes to keep a small roastery going. And we know exactly how much we need week on week. And I don't know if you've seen or read about the fluctuations in the coffee pricing at the moment. We've been able to sort of shelter ourselves a little bit from that because we haven't been relying on external clients for the roastery. So it's been quite good.
I knew a little bit about coffee, a little bit, because I love coffee so much. But I learned more prepping for this interview in terms of like climate change and what's the impact of climate change and like what's the coffee business going to be like in 2050? You know what I mean? I hadn't really appreciated the complexities of the coffee industry as a whole. You know, you mentioned climate change, tariffs, leaving the EU. All of these things impact what goes into my double espresso every morning. And you don't think about it that way.
No. But like in a way, that's kind of, to me anyway, you don't need to know about that. As long as you're coming in and you enjoy what we're giving you, then we've done our job. You know, like it's nice if people do take an interest and they understand what's gone into it. For us, it's like, okay, cool. Somebody is going to appreciate all this a little bit more. And it might give you a deeper appreciation of, oh, wow, understanding how much work has gone into the espresso makes me enjoy it more. But then at the same time, I'm very conscious of making sure people don't feel like they're getting like lectured to. As long as you're enjoying the espresso or your flat white, and you're happy to just trust that we're charging what we need to charge for it.
One of my favorite things about the shop is that you're never lecturing. You can walk into other coffee shops. Like my wife, her go-to drink is a cappuccino with 2 sugars. And I can't tell you how many specialty coffee shops where people are like, why are you putting 2 sugars in your coffee? You have such a love for the process and for coffee, and just hearing you speak about how you roast your own beans and all that. But that doesn't come across. You're getting an amazing cup of coffee in a great vibe, but in a very chill environment.
Well, that's really great to hear. Because that's what I've always gone for. Ultimately, as long as you're coming in and you just feel at ease, you feel welcomed, and you can just sit down and enjoy your coffee, job done. But if you are interested and you want to talk to us about what we're doing, then we're more than happy to talk your ear off about it as well. Because I know not everybody will be interested. They just want to have a coffee, and if it tastes good, bonus. So we try not to force that upon anyone. But absolutely, if you were sitting there going, why does this taste nice? Maybe I could ask, like, more than happy chat to you about it.
I know, going back to the roasting thing for a second, sometimes you'll have your special second options. What goes into that, into the process of deciding to put a bean on the menu or offer it for sale?
A lot of it is seasonality. So we build our menu around harvest seasons. So every country will have its own harvest season. So like when it's Rwanda season, there's a beautiful washing station there called Shira, where we buy coffee from every year because it's just some of the best coffee I think you can get in the world. It's absolutely incredible. I'll get in touch with a company that they're called Raw Material, great company. We'll get in touch with them and just say, I need this and this and this from Shira this year. And they'll go, great. And then the process begins. We'll have that with a few spots, Rwanda and Burundi, Colombia, working on some East Asian stuff this year because we've not had a chance to get much from East Asia. Indonesia, East Timor, Myanmar, places like that. Even China. China's a real up and comer. But there isn't a vast quantity of speciality coming out of East Asia. So it gets wrapped up pretty quick, it gets sold pretty quick. So I'm trying to get in there a little earlier this year. So yeah, we'll follow the seasons with countries that we really love buying from. And then every company that imports or exports coffee will have what's called a spot list. And if we feel like there's a little gap, we'll think like, oh, we'd love to get just a little super special little thing in for the summer or for Christmas or something like that. We can get in touch with various companies and get their menu of coffee that they've got just now. And we go, that one sounds great. I'll take a little bag of that.
You talked about climate change. You mentioned China. Because of climate change and because of tariffs and all of the other external forces, are you seeing coffees from regions that people would not think that you're just like, that's really exciting?
For me, China is the only one so far that maybe wasn't there when I first started, that is there now. And I think that's just because they're obviously a huge economic power. But the more the effect that climate change is having is reducing the amount of coffee that's actually getting produced. And so if this isn't maybe too cynical of an opinion, you could maybe see people in China thinking, gap in the market, we can grow lots of coffee here. Huge country, they've got the resources to be able to produce really good coffee, and it is good coffee. And it's like, I guess you could either see that as an interloper coming into the status quo, or it's just great that there's more good coffee in the world. Because yeah, I do think that's maybe something people should be aware of, is that at the current rate, there is going to be less and less coffee each year, unfortunately.
Sounds like a nightmare.
Harvests are failing more regularly, and I think it's getting better. There's more work being done on the ground and more education about horticulture as well.
You've talked a lot about the history. You've been around for 11 years. How has the industry changed, and how have you guys navigated those changes?
That is a big question.
You have 30 seconds.
The common thing I've seen from my particular group of the people I know in Edinburgh is everybody had to mature at some point and actually try and become business people. When we all first started, it was just little shops, just kind of plain cafes. And at the time, everyone was owner run. So you're there on the ground all day. And because it was a lot cheaper to run a business back then, there wasn't such a pressure to be busy all the time that there is now. Basically, if you're not heaving all the time, it can put pressures on the business, but there was a little bit more space. But over time, as various things were happening, first it was Brexit, and then obviously COVID, and now we're kind of having to run a business through a recession. Everybody had to sort of take a step back and think, all right, we're actually going to have to try and build a solid business here and make sure that we can ride all these challenges that we keep getting presented with. So that's kind of one side of the coin. But the other side of the coin, purely from the coffee industry, other than the challenges I've already said about climate change, it's been 10 years of innovation and excitement. Every year something new would get introduced. There'd be a new bit of kit to play with. People would introduce a new idea, like the idea that the mineral composition of your water is really important. That was something I didn't know about when I first started, but then that started getting drip fed and everyone messes around with that. And on a farm level, there's so much going on with innovative processing techniques and fermentation techniques going on with coffee now. So counteracted with the challenges that are being faced. It's been really, really exciting. It's interesting to see how the tastes of consumers have shifted.
Interesting. How so?
When we first opened, it was all like, give me something wild. Give me something I've never tried before. It drove a lot of people to look for what we would call funky coffees. Coffees that had some sort of interesting fermentation, unique varieties that have unique cup profiles. We just started out going, here's our blend and here's a flat white. But then people were like, oh, give me something different. And then you kind of have gone through this whole journey of trying to find those interesting cups, interesting processes, interesting varieties, which are still there now. But I think from what I can tell, they are much more specialized. So you'll get certain places that will specialize in doing those. And places like us have more come back to doing just very nice coffee that you could drink every day. Quality is always really, really good. And I think people now value consistency more than being too adventurous. You still get plenty of people who'll be like, oh, I'll try the second espresso or I'll have a pour over today. But there's a little less chat about, give me something wild. What have you got today? And I don't know if that's just because customers understand how a specialty cafe works, whereas they didn't back in the day. It's the idea of having a flat white or a long black, that's all become pretty common language now. You've got like Costa will sell a flat white, which they never did until specialty showed up. Everyone's got used to the language and the vibe, and people more value consistency. Just because people are having to pay a little bit more than they used to, they just want to know that it's going to be something that they're going to enjoy.
I'm sure too, just Edinburgh as a city and the specialty coffee scene in Edinburgh has changed so much. Now there are so many players. When you opened in 2014, there were a few and certainly nobody doing their own roasting. So it seems as a city, the coffee culture has grown up a lot in the last 10 or 11 years.
We totally by accident timed it perfectly when we opened, because you had the only really established spot was Artisan Roast, who were roasting, and I think they just had the one cafe at the time, but they've been going for a few years already, and they were the guys, and people still love them. They're still packed out. And then Brew Lab, who are now Origin, they opened about a year, I think, or so before we did. And then we opened our shop about the same time as Cairngorm did. Right. And then just a few months before Cult did. We were all still going now, which is great. So you essentially had 4 places that you could go to in the whole city for a specialty coffee. And I think this speaks volumes, like Edinburgh as a food and drink city, is the people, their expectations are a bit higher maybe than other places. So like if I was opening a cafe now, I think I would find it a lot more difficult than I did 10 years ago, because the expectations are already set. You've got to be at a certain level, you've got to have a certain look, you've got to have a certain fit out on the bar, you've got to be serving a certain kind of coffee.
There's not as much room for a guy who just came from Argos to start and learn on the road.
No, exactly. If you opened and you didn't look like you knew what you were doing and your coffee was bad, people would just think, well, I've got 20 other places I could go to do that. So we timed it really fortunately. I think the reason why we're all still here is because the wants of the consumer have changed in our favor in a way, I guess. I think the fact that all the businesses I mentioned there are still going, it would suggest that Edinburgh really values its sort of independence. And if you're going to spend your money on a coffee, let's make it a good one.
And what was it like going from one shop to 3 across the city?
So Stockbridge was the second one that we opened in early 2020. We opened it 4 weeks before the first lockdown.
Perfect timing.
Perfect. Exactly. To be honest, we had a really interesting COVID. The Stockbridge shop was kind of okay because it was neighborhood, so no one was going to work. The only thing people could do was go for a walk and grab a coffee. And we were like one of the only spots open in the whole of Stockbridge. And so we had queue right down the block. So it wasn't too bad, but the original shop in York Place got hit really bad.
Yeah, especially because it was like a lot of tourists, right? And people getting off the tram and office buildings.
Exactly. So they were all shut. The city centre was just deserted and closed for 4 months, and then tried to reopen but weren't making enough money, and so we closed again. But I think most people who do a second location, it feels very adventurous, and you do it because you feel like you've got more to offer, particularly when going from the tiny one on York Place, particularly as the shop was getting busier and busier. And there was some like festival days where it was really tough because it wasn't designed to handle that many people, not only customers but the staff we needed in there. And I don't think it would happen so quickly if we hadn't found that spot on Hamilton Place where where me and Helmer were just walking to Stockbridge randomly. And we had very loose chats about, I feel kind of getting the vibe that we might want to do another one. And then we saw them putting up the to let sign on that unit. And they were just like, and we gave them a call and we had a viewing the next day, and then that was it. But went in, like, saw the tiles and the walls and the original floors, and we're just, that's just perfect.
Yeah. I feel like that's one of the things about the Fortitude brand. Each space is different in its own way. Like, they're not all built out the same. It doesn't all look the same, but there's still very much a common thread throughout it that links them together, I feel like.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, I got to tell you that between lockdowns, I missed Fortitude so much. Not just the coffee itself, but like the ritual of like you get up and you walk to get a coffee. Like that's part of my daily routine. But like I ended up buying the coffee cups that you guys have.
So the little orange ones.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I bought them just so I could have some level of normalcy, like during lockdown when I couldn't go to Fortitude. So the fandom runs deep, man. Runs very deep.
It's interesting you say that, because when we were first reopening and people were coming in, a lot of people said that you can buy the beer and wine that you like to drink. You could make the food you like to make, but you couldn't get the coffee that you were used to. And then not only the coffee itself, but like you say, just that little bit of social interaction every day just makes such a difference to your day.
No, there's that third space, right? You have work, you have home, but you need that other space. And it's important.
Oh, 100%.
All right. We're going to wrap things up by asking you a series of 4 questions.
Okay.
Every guest gets these questions. So just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
What's the one thing on the Fortitude menu that you wish more people ordered?
Pour over. Even though the staff would hate me for saying that because they're a bit of a ball ache to make. But when a pour over is dialed in just right with just the right coffee, I think that's as good as speciality can get. But it's obviously, it's more expensive. It's very time consuming. So it's hard to hit those heights sometimes on the bar. Like if it's a busy day, but if you're at home and you've got the right kit to be able to do it and take your time about it, it can be incredible.
I've never done the pour over at Fortitude, but next time I'm in, we're going pour over, but we're going to make sure we go at like the peak of the morning rush.
Go to back and be like, we want 3 pour overs, please.
Go first thing on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, exactly.
All different coffees.
Exactly.
Or Friday morning when the school mom rushes.
When the mom
exactly.
group comes in.
Yeah.
You know exactly what we're talking about. That's amazing. That's amazing.
So when a friend comes to visit Edinburgh, what restaurant are you taking them to?
I would either hit Ratso. Really love it there. I've taken many people there. It's like just beautiful pizza. It's well priced, quick. Really can't complain there at all. But I'd also, just to stick on the pizza vibe, I live out in Ratho, as I mentioned before. And we've just had the Lost Shore Surf Centre. They've got a Chivarino's down in the sort of food hall. Getting a slice of pizza and just sitting by the waves in the sun on an evening with the kids, because there's loads of space to run around and you just leave them to it. That's really sweet.
Have you been hitting the waves?
Not had a chance to hit the waves yet, but we're planning on
Too much
doing
roasting. Too much roasting.
a little. Yeah.
What's your favorite, or call it best, coffee shop outside of Edinburgh?
Outside of Edinburgh.
Yeah.
In Copenhagen.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, Scandies love their coffee, dude.
They do, and they do it very well. But there's a spot in Copenhagen called Prologue. I remember going there, and it's very Copenhagen. It was in an old like meat packing district. Just this really thin shop, but I had an amazing brew there, beautiful croissant, and I just felt like I was winning at life at that point. And
I'm 99% sure I've been there.
Yeah.
Because
I think it's pretty famous.
It's pretty famous. Yeah. All right. Last
question. Last question everybody gets. Between rice, bread, and pasta, you can only choose one to have for the rest of your life. What are you going with?
Pasta.
Pasta.
Yeah.
That's my man.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of cooking at home, and pasta is just a godsend. My kids, if they could only eat bread for the rest of their lives, they'd be totally happy. But pasta is a good delivery vice for some half decent things. Yeah,
for some vegetables, like hidden vegetables.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Thank you so much for
my pleasure.
joining us.
It's been
This
great.
has been wonderful.
Yeah.
Even though we've been going for years, there's still so much to know about a place that you love, and it's part of your community and part of your daily routine. And so we're really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. What a way to end season 1. Can't thank Matt enough for coming on. Without Matt to end this season, or Elizabeth and Sharif to start this season, I don't know that we wind up doing this podcast. Like we talked about in the intro, Fortitude's a very special place for us. And so getting to have Matt on and hear the story and really celebrate Fortitude coffee for the wonderful coffee shop that it is has really been a treat. And I can attest, the pour over is spectacular.
Also, shout out to Becca and the entire crew at Fortitude on Hamilton Place, because we see them sometimes multiple times a day, every day. We're huge fans of theirs as well, and they're a huge part to making Fortitude what it is, and particularly what it is for us.
100%.
So this is the end of our first season. We've had so many people reach out to us, tell us how much they love the show. We want to let everyone know that we are knee-deep planning season 2. We have another 10 episodes on the docket. We're hard at work, and so there's a lot more to come. In the meantime, though, we are planning a few surprises, including more Supper Club events. So we are looking to have another Supper Club event in March, so stay tuned, especially if you're following us on social, particularly on Instagram, you'll get all of that information. And we also have 1 or 2 other fun surprises that will be coming your way. So definitely stay tuned for season 2, Supper Club, and a few delicious surprises.
Yeah, make sure you're subscribed to the Instagram and subscribe to the podcast, wherever you listen to your podcast, to make sure you're getting those updates.
Correct. And so in the meantime, we wish you all the best, and let us know where you're eating.